I just had the worst sales call of my entire life last week, and I'm not exaggerating. This closer was so arrogant and so convinced that they were right that he literally hung up the call mid-call because I wouldn't reschedule with him. And here's the crazy part. This lesson is a lesson that every closer needs to hear because I see this specific mistake happening all the time. Right? So stick around because I'm going to break down exactly what went wrong on this call and more importantly, how you can make sure this never happens to your pipeline because you're literally lighting money on fire when you do this. So let me provide you with a little context. First of all, I'm a student of sales, right? It's literally what I do. So when somebody books a call to pitch me something, a tool or a service or strategy, whatever, I almost always take the call, especially when people cold email me, I always book calls, right? Why, you might ask? Well, because as a founder, I need to keep my eyes open on anything that can help my business, right? And my team. But it's not just about evaluating tools. I genuinely love learning how people pitch, right? I love seeing different sales approaches, different frameworks, and different techniques, right? It's basically like a master class every single time. So what did I do? I went ahead and booked this call, right? I'm not going to mention the company's name just because I don't want to do that specifically. But please remember the time that was allocated for this call is 45 minutes. So it should have been great, right? No, that's not how it works. So let me give you a little bit more context. The call starts and this closer is already a couple of minutes late. Not a huge deal, right? We've all been there. But then, before he even dives into his pitch, I basically stopped him at the beginning of the call and just told him, hey, I need to be upfront. I got another call in 25 minutes. So if you can condense your pitch, that would be really helpful, right? Now, think about this for a second. The call was booked for 45 minutes, but I'm going to give him a 25-minute window. That should be more than enough to do some discovery, understand my pain points, and potentially set a follow-up call if needed. But instead of rolling with it, instead of adapting, this closer got super defensive, right? And generally you see this in founder-led sales because sometimes they just don't need to close or they don't need to deal with bullshit, but a closer specifically getting defensive is the worst thing that you can do. Well, the worst thing that anybody can do, right? Because you're killing the sale right there and then if you get defensive, right? He was pretty darn adamant, that we need to reschedule right at the beginning of the call. We need the full 45 minutes. And I told him again, I'm leaving tomorrow for a 3.5-week trip. I cannot reschedule, right? But 25 minutes is plenty of time, right? If we just focus and get to the actual, meat and bones of the pitch. And you know what he did specifically? He said, and I'm not making this shit up. Basically said, if you want to reschedule, I'm not taking the call, right? And then he hung up specifically. He literally ended the call because he couldn't adapt his pitch to the time slot that I had available. And this is literally the worst thing you can do as a closer. And it's not because of me, right? It's because of his arrogance specifically that he cannot, or his ignorance that he could not, basically condense his pitch in 25 minutes. So there's a couple of different lessons that we can learn from this. And the first lesson that I've learned was that, and every closer watching this needs to hear this, right? If you cannot deliver your pitch in the time that the prospect has available, you need to condense your pitch. That's it. Full stop. No questions about it, right? Your job is not to make the pitch perfect. Your job is to have a conversation with a prospect in the time that they have allocated, right? That's the constraint you're working with. And, the best closers that I specifically know of, well, they adapt to the prospect. They don't ask the prospect to adapt to them, right? Let's think about this logically. This closer had a time slot on his calendar, right? And the prospect, who was me in this case, was willing to take the call. And instead of using that time to build something, to gather information, to build rapport, to understand what the prospect actually needs, he threw it away because his ego was too big to compress his pitch, right? Which is a huge, huge, huge issue, right? And here's what he should have done, in my opinion. Accept the 25 minutes and use it strategically. Because in a 25-minute call, you don't need to make the offer, right? You don't need to close that deal. What do you need to do? Well, you could potentially do this, right? Number one, in the first 3 to 4 minutes, build rapport, right? Humanize that call, right? Build a relationship with that person, right? The second step, which can lead you to basically 10 minutes of the call, is ask discovery questions, right? Now, the next part of the call is you can pull out the pain, right? And then the final part of it, you can set the follow-up call at that point in time. Nobody's going to reschedule a call or set a follow-up call if you did not build rapport and pre-frame and pre-sell the next call, basically telling them the value that they're going to receive from booking the next call with you. And if you don't use, like the closer in this instance, you just wanted to reschedule the call right there and there without providing any context, without providing any sort of, without pre-framing or pre-selling the next call, right? He wanted to set the next call right there and then when he had 25 minutes of my time, right? What he should have done is use that 25 minutes to his advantage and build rapport, ask discovery questions, pull out the pain, and set the follow-up call at the end of it. That's it, right? You have everything you need in 25 minutes to set up a second call where you can make the full pitch and ask for the deal, right? But instead, in this case, right, he let his arrogance get in the way and he assumed that 25 minutes wasn't enough. So he decided not to take the call at all. That's a losing move every single time. And this brings me to lesson number 2, which is actually related to lesson number 1. Now, I see closers doing this consistently and it drives me freaking insane. They get on the call with the prospect and early in the conversation, they'll ask something down the lines of, are you the decision maker, right? And if the prospect says, no, I'm not, and they basically, if they say something down the lines of, oh, well, the CEO needs to approve this, and the closers, and I see this all the time, closers will basically say, okay, well, we need to reschedule this call until the decision maker is on the line, and then they end the call. Do you see the pattern here, right? And the pattern here specifically is there's an obstacle, so I'm going to end the call instead of working through it. That's not sales, that's giving up, right? And that is not what closers do. And here's the reality. You already have that time slot or that time slot blocked on your calendar, right? You already have the prospect's attention. They're on the call. What are you going to do? Just waste that time that you've set out, right? No, what you should do is use that time to your advantage, right? And if the decision maker is not on that call specifically, guess what? That's fine, right? You're not going to try to close them now in any way. So the best thing you can do is go through the discovery, right? You're trying to understand their pain, their situation, their timeline. So here's what you should be doing instead, right? Step number 1, build rapport. Like I said before, right? Spend 5 to 10 minutes generally getting to know this person. Ask about their business, their challenges, their goals. Make it a real and honest conversation, right? Step 2, do discovery. Ask more questions, real questions, not scripted bullshit, right? Get to the root of what is actually keeping them up all night and why they're actually on this call with you, right? Step 3, pull out that pain. Help them articulate basically what their current situation is costing them, right? Make them feel the problem, right? Bring that problem up and dig a little bit deeper into that problem. And step 4, the final step here, book the follow-up, right? At the end of that 25 minutes, say something like, hey, this has been really helpful. I think I can actually help you with the X, Y, and Z problem, right? But I want to make sure that on our next call, your CEO is actually on the call with us. So you don't have to, playing phone tag and basically, relay everything that I'm saying here, right? Now, what does your and your CEO's schedule look like next week so we can set a call right there, right? Now, this is the point where you ask for the decision maker, right? But by the time you ask for that, you've already built a relationship with the person on the call itself. You've already pulled out their pain. And now when they go talk to the CEO, they're going to say something like, hey, I just got off this call with this person. I think they might actually be able to help us, right? And there's potential there. Now it's a warm handoff, right? Now that's how you close deals, especially when you have limited time, right? But what this closer did was the complete opposite. He made it clear that he didn't give a shit about rapport building, right? He didn't care about understanding the prospect. All he cared about was following his script and getting the decision maker on the call, right? And getting the time allocated that he wanted instead of what the prospect wanted, right? And I felt that, right? And if that's basically how they treat you on a sales call, I can only imagine what the fulfillment looks like, right? Okay, so here's what I want you to do if you ever find yourself in a similar situation. And trust me, you probably will, right? And here's the, let's call it the 25-minute call framework, right? Now, when a prospect says they only have a little bit of time, right? Here's your game plan. First, build that rapport. Don't jump into the pitch. Ask them about themselves. Ask them about their business. Make it personal. Show that you actually give a shit and care about them as a person, and make it sure that they know that they're just not a commission check, right? Now, the next part is where you're gonna ask discovery questions, right? Things such as, what's your biggest challenge lately, right? And it's hard to personalize these questions because I don't know your offer, because you're just watching this through a screen, right? And if you want, comment down below what your offer is specifically, and I can make videos on that, right? You can ask questions such as, how's your team handling X, Y, and Z currently, right? And what would it look like if this problem was solved, right? Get specific, get detailed, right? The goal is to make them feel like they are understood, right? And you understand them. Because when a prospect basically feels understood and heard, they're way more likely to move forward with the next call, right? Now, the next part is pain articulation. And here's where you're going to pull out that pain, like I mentioned. And you can say some things like, so it sounds like you're spending about 10 hours a week on the X, Y, and Z problem, right? And from my understanding, it's costing you roughly $5,000 a month in productivity loss, plus the opportunity cost of not having the team focused on growth, right? Would you tend to agree, right? And ask them questions like that specifically, because what you're doing is you're going to help them see the cost of their current situation, and this is crucial, because if they don't feel the pain on the call, they're simply not going to take any action at all, right? Which is important, right? Now, the last part of a call is scheduling the follow-up. And then at the very end of the call, say, look, I think I can genuinely help you with this, but I want to make sure we get the right people in the room. Can we set up a follow-up call next week where we can dive deeper and talk, talk about what a solution might look like? And that's when you ask them for the decision maker, right? But now they want to bring the decision maker because they believe you can actually help them and not waste the decision maker's time, right? That's essentially how you handle a short call, right? Don't view it as a limitation. View it as a strategic step in a longer conversation, and the sales cycle is just going to be another call longer, right? And here's the thing specifically. This approach actually will increase your close rate. Why? Because you're building real relationships instead of trying to force close people and hard close people who don't even know the hell you are, right? The closer in my call could have done this all differently, right? He had 25 minutes, more than enough time. I was interested in the service, but instead he chose arrogance, he chose his script over the prospect, and he lost the deal because I'm for sure not booking a follow-up call with him, right? So here's the one takeaway I want you to take from this. Number one, if a prospect gives you a time constraint, okay, basically don't use that time to reschedule. Work with it, adapt your approach, use the time strategically. And number two, if a prospect is not the decision maker, that's okay. Build rapport with them in any way because they are the gateway to the decision maker, right? Pull out their pain. And then afterwards, once you build rapport, once you've basically introduced their pain, right, and made them realize what the pain is, then you can ask for the decision maker on the next call, okay? Number three, your ego has no place in sales, okay? The moment you start thinking you're smarter than the process or better than the prospect or too good to compress your pitch, that's when you lose deals. Because the best closers that I personally know, they adapt. They're super humble and they view every call, regardless of the time constraint, as an opportunity to build a relationship, okay? And this closer specifically, he had an opportunity and he threw it away. Don't be that closer. So I hope this video helped, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.